So I want to talk a little bit about polytheism in ancient Greece, and polytheism kind of in general as a concept versus monotheism. In monotheism, there is generally a sense that, like, God, whatever you call God, is good, sometimes perfect, and sometimes all-knowing, right? But there's no such constraint about that in polytheism. And you will note in the Iliad that the gods actually kind of act like they're, the desperate housewives of Mount Olympus. Right? So what's going on with that? Right? Well, on one hand, it's simply the system, right? So in this kind of worldview, the gods tend to have different jobs, right? So there's almost always a guy who's in charge of thunder, there's some chick who's in charge of agriculture, there's another chick who's in charge of love, another one in charge of childbirth, a guy who's in charge of war. It's a very gendered affair, as you can see. And this carries over into many cultures with very few exceptions. So the idea that the pantheon has different bailiwicks, right? That each god is the boss of a different aspect of life means that you have to attend to different gods and goddesses at different times for different things that you need. This also means that they get into a lot of conflict, yeah? So as you can see in the Trojan War, there are gods on different sides, right? And it all goes back to, this apple of discord. And the idea that, which you'll be seeing a video on this week, and the idea that they're feisty and spicy with each other, right? And Hera's always mad at her husband, and Zeus is always messing around on her, and Athena's on this side and Apollo's on that side, and Aphrodite's rooting for the Trojans and Hera's rooting for the Greeks, etc., etc. So what's up with that? It's well, to some extent, right, this is just gender roles, jobs, personalities, being projected, writ large, yeah? But another thing to think about is that polytheism creates a very different relationship to suffering than monotheism does. Right? So if you think about the various characters whom the gods come down and help or hurt on the battlefield, it's never their fault, right? So in monotheism, there is a real problem with suffering, right? It's there's one God, he likes me, why does my life suck? Right? That's a problem. And there are various ways that you can answer that, right? Number one, of course, is I screwed up. I might not know what I did, but I did something and I deserve this. But then there are litmus cases, right? Where it's no one did anything that could have deserved this. Right? So you have a real logical problem with suffering in monotheism. You have no such problem with suffering in polytheism. It's I was standing here and Apollo and Athena decided to have it out and I was in the way. Boom, right? No problem. So what happens to me, my fate, if you will, it has no bearing, right? It has no relationship to me as a person, right? I'm just in the way. And that, I personally think, would have been very comforting in a lot of ways. But I'd be interested to hear what you think about that. All right, enjoy. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.